We want you to be a part of our studio audience. If you're in the Toronto area, contact us.
Have you made a Skype call recently, purchased music from iTunes, or watched a movie? Well, our next guest says that without the porn industry, we wouldn't have those technologies that are part of our daily life. Patchen Bars is the author of The Erotic Engine, How Pornography Has Powered Mass Communication from Gutenberg to Google. Patchen, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
You write that $3 billion a year is being spent in child porn. It's a huge industry, but that actually the XXX industry is trying to say, we have an ethic, we actually don't want this stuff.
Well, yeah, I think that the pornography industry has a vested interest, a very strong interest in distancing themselves. I think that with many of the people that I spoke to in the industry, lots of people have all kinds of comfort lines that they are not willing to cross. A lot of people think if you work in the industry, you have no boundaries, but it's actually not true.
Well, the industry is much larger. Your book outlines that it is bigger than all of the revenues of our 5 top tech companies combined, including Apple, bigger than ABC, NBC, CBS combined. Half the hotel guests rent porn. How can this be that it's such a big part of the economy?
Well, it's such a big part and often ignored as well. Now there is a caveat with those statistics, which is that there are a lot of claims that are very difficult to verify. Those are best guesses. But the industry has always existed in a sort of shadowy, marginal area, working at the edges of the legal system, at the edges of business and communications technology. So even though they're massively influential on an economic front and in many other ways as well, they have an interest in maintaining a low profile, and a lot of the mainstream world has an interest in not really paying too much attention to them.
But your thesis says that this very program, the technology that we use to make this, the fact that, we are a donor-driven program, so we get our gifts over, like giving on the internet, all of that stuff, the high speed we stream onto our bandwidth to watch this very show, I should say thank you to the pornography industry, otherwise I wouldn't have it.
Well, the internet as we know it, and I'm talking about things like streaming video, the media-rich internet, and e-commerce. Those were things that were all driven or really invented by the pornography industry.
Right, it came out of the military, the internet did, but it would not have been commercially viable had it not been for porn.
So you have the internet created by the American military, it spreads through the university system, but then the people who really turn it into our internet experience today were the pornographers. And so even if you are just going to Amazon, going to eBay, YouTube, Facebook, none of that would have existed without the push of the technology that came from...
The next frontier in pornography is net sex, or maybe it's not the next, it's here already. And I want to warn parents that we want to show you some things because all our kids are on gaming and they're looking at these avatar things, or you see them up on your gaming things. Patchen, tell us where we're going with net sex, or where we already are.
So net sex has been around for a long time, probably since the 70s, though it was, at that time, it was done in a purely text-based environment. But essentially, one of the big surprises when I was doing the research for this book was we think that pornography drives the internet. A lot of people think because it's more anonymous. You don't have to deal with someone selling you. You don't have to be in a theater with other people. Every aspect of consuming pornography is solitary when you're using the internet. But the reality is that one of the great appeals of the internet has always been that there are hundreds or thousands of people connected at the same time. And in fact, through things like virtual worlds. So what happens is, yes, there's pornography that's being bought and sold, and that economic driver has pushed the technology. But there's also another hugely powerful force, which is people creating pornography or erotic material for and with other users. So there's no money exchanging hands. And it is a way that people have found that they can connect with other people. And there's good and bad to that. There are people, it's their form of expression, and then there are people who realize rather horrible fantasies through that same technology.
Are you, as a researcher, saying we're in a scary new tomorrow?
Well, I think there is something scary, and maybe it's just the same fear everybody feels with a new technology, but there is something fundamentally different about where virtual worlds are going. So virtual worlds are three-dimensional environments with hundreds of people logged on, and a lot of what's happened there is people creating sexual scenarios. And the thing about virtual worlds that's unlike any medium that's ever come before is that you're not reading about someone else doing things. You're doing those things. Even though it's your avatar on the screen, if you talk to people who are invested in virtual worlds, it's an aspect of them. So it's not reality, but it's not as unreal as reading a book or watching a movie or any of the traditional media. It's a brand new thing, and I really don't think that people are ready for what that means when virtual worlds gain more of a mainstream purchase.
All right. Patchen Bars, author of The Erotic Engine. We want to now go to our studio audience because we actually have been talking about this with them. And Naomi, we've got someone in our audience, Naomi Zacharias, another author. You wrote that you dated 3 men who were heavy porn users. How did you deal with that?
Not very well, actually. I was very naive when I first started dating, and I think I was so shocked to find that out. And it was devastating, I would use that word, and traumatizing the first time. And as it kept coming up in relationships, I didn't even know what to do with it. I didn't know what it said to me. I didn't know what it said about me. I think as a woman, it just made me, these images are so unreal. And I just think with a woman with a normal body, you can never compete with that. Like a woman, you don't look like that. You don't behave like that, and it just made me feel like I could never be enough. And I think even now, years later, and I've had several conversations with different women who have had that in relationships and in marriages too, and just the devastation that it has caused. I don't know if most people are aware of, I think, what it does to the psyche of a woman. And for me, years later now, long after those relationships, and I'm very happily married to a wonderful man, and I would say it still affects me every day. My self-confidence has never been the same.
Wow. Well, thank you very much. And Patchen, you write in The Erotic Engine, you kind of leave it up to us to decide if this is morally neutral territory or not. Have you made a conclusion for yourself?
It's a good question. I think that I think there's no doubt that the reality of even legal forms of pornography is that the vast propensity of it is exploitative. It is, for the most part, sexist. It is often racist and often plays on worse motivations, violence and other predatory impulses. So overall, I think that it's not something I'm comfortable with. But I always, no matter which way I make the argument, there's always a caveat to say that there are some people, couples, for whom it is a healthy addition to their sex lives. There are people for whom it's educational, people for whom it is a liberating form of entertainment. Those stories are true, but I think that the overwhelming majority of stories have more to do with the exploitative side of pornography.
All right, Patchen Bars, thank you very much. More about your book on our website and how to find more about Patchen. Thank you. Well, now it's time to find out what you think. Have you ever intentionally watched pornography? Send us your answers by phone, email, Facebook, and Twitter, or leave a video message on our website. And I'd love to know what you think, so be part of the conversation. And our studio audience is taking an anonymous vote on those, and we'll have those results when we come back. Well, coming up, a pastor who preaches that Jesus loves porn stars and a former stripper who founded an organization dedicated to helping women in the sex industry. XXX Church, when we come back.
I think if people want to watch pornography, they should be able to watch pornography.
I don't see it as a bad thing.
I wouldn't say it's a bad thing. I suppose it depends in what context, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm all for it. I have no problems with it.
The exposure to the youth is far too much.
Maybe it needs to be better controlled in terms of who has access to it and who can consume it.